recent post over the last couple of days, you would know that we have a new visual coming out today for the song Afro Frontier. And I can't say that without saying, again, we appreciate y'all's support with all three singles that we've dropped so far. So that's Harriet Tubman, that's Forward Motion, as well as Afro Frontier. So once again, the video for that is going to be available late this evening. You may be up, you may not be. That's okay. You can hit YouTube. It'll be available Saturday morning. So you can wake up, grab your coffee or your juice or whatever you do. And just like when we used to get up and watch cartoons on Saturday morning, y'all can check out the Afro Frontier video. So this is a special moment because what we want to do with this release is there's a bunch of people that have contributed to all the singles that we've released thus far. And this one is super special because Afro Frontier is a title that many people may not have heard of before. And we have today the gentleman who actually coined this term. So he's going to shed a little bit of light, a little bit of insight on what Afro Frontier actually means, why we as Village King decided to go with that term for the naming of the song. And yeah, so we're going to chat with him. He's going to pop in here in just a second. I'm going to make sure that all is well. I got my man Phil Henry in the building. What's good there, sir? All right. And then we're going live with the So once again, we are speaking with the gentleman that coined the term, Dr. Timothy Nelson, who coined the term Afro Frontier. And there he is. Greetings to you, sir.
Oh,
We made it happen.
it did. Yeah, this is the first. I've been on a lot of, virtual stuff, but I've never been on Instagram Live. Never.
Yeah.
So this is interesting.
Yeah, welcome to the party, man. So
Appreciate it.
I was just prepping everybody that's joining us live. Obviously, this is going to be living in the feed so people can watch it at will, kind of on demand. Just letting them know a little bit of one, who you were as far as the creator of the term Afro Frontier, and how we use that for our latest single as well as the video that's coming out later this evening. But I appreciate you taking the time to come on here and just chat with us because I'm excited for people to hear the whole story behind the term and a little bit about the work that you do as well. And we can start there because I know we can go on as far as how it's connected to my family and all that. But just introduce yourself to the people and tell us a little bit about what you do.
I am Dr. Timothy E. Nelson, and I'm on all of the platforms. And I'm a historian by trade, but for the culture, I am a producer of all things Blackdom and Afro Frontier because it's a new concept. And I want Black people to have a different way of looking at their own history because, a lot of times the history is all about the old Negro spiritual. Not that I don't like old Negro spirituals. I listen to them, but there's also a modern way of understanding Black people 100 years ago, 200 years ago, that most people haven't been accustomed to because they've only heard, the basic narrative.
Sure.
So I tried to do that. So
sure. Now you've coined this term Afro Frontier, and it's been interesting because as we've titled the song, which I actually think there's another song with the same title that I saw on Spotify one time.
Yeah, it's electro, and
yes.
I talked to the dude too. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. And so what I find interesting about it is because now with you have this global recognizing of like Afro beat music, and so I think when people hear the term Afro Frontier as it's connected to music, they immediately go there. Obviously, I heard of the term, and I didn't realize that you were actually the one that coined the term initially, because I think I've heard it thrown out either somewhere online or through a documentary of some sort. And then I realized, oh, yes, this is Dr. Timothy, who's the same one that does the work that you talked about as far as being historian work on Blackdom, which is connected to my family.
Yeah.
But can you tell us like the term, how you came about coming up with the term, and then what it actually means?
Okay, so what it actually means. I'm going to give you the very basic short version. So my students they started showing me these videos of the Illuminati,
Mm.
right? And I'm like, okay, all right, I see what you're saying. Okay, so I then took the idea of Illuminati, and then I placed that in the history of your family and Blackdom and that kind of thing, and I saw that they created an Illuminati. Well, and what I mean, I can tell y'all about that later if y'all ask questions. But from there, I had to now do something historical or about history, and I wanted to bring that Illuminati notion into it so that we can reach the kids. And Afrofrontierism came out of trying to redefine the way that they talk about your family. So let me just give you an example
Absolutely.
of why I needed to create it. So when they talk about Frank Boyer, they talk about him running away from white people. Okay, they talk about him running away from the South and finding his promised land. So there's this Moses-like character that they use, and it's been a basic way that people talked about Black people leaving the South. And I understood it a whole lot differently because I went to a school that talked about borderlands, which includes Mexico. And Frank Boyer was a military man, he was a minister and a Freemason. That triad produced revolution, right? So it's not the regular Jesus, it's the dangerous Jesus, right? That he understood, that he provoked, and there were a whole lot of other people who believed that same thing. However, the old framework was frontier, right? And when you look at that, it's through the lens of white people and white people on horses. And I mean white people, not just skin color. I mean the consciousness of white as a superior and Black as inferior, right? So I had to, in changing that, Afrofrontierism became my mantra as I was looking through what your family actually did, which is still revolutionary today. We'll get to that later. But Afrofrontierism is so that we can include different times, space, and I'll give you an example of that. So we're talking about frontiers, the West, but this can go all the way back to the continent, back to Taharka and Black pharaohs. There's always this frontier that Black folks are on, whether they're enslaved or not, whether they're on top or not. There's always this ambition to be sovereign. We're talking about Black people as free, but Black people who understood God and the spirituality and God's sovereignty, that was the goal when they were free, was to employ their freedom, not just be free. You could be free and poor. No, they wanted to be sovereign and raise their own consciousness and their own children and their own. So that's Afrofrontierism in a nutshell.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I knew that was a loaded question because I knew
it's
there was
loaded.
so many layers
I
to
could
it.
be here all day, brother.
And for context for those people that are listening, so I became aware of the term again of the work that Dr. Timothy does on the Blackdom town site, which would be my 3 times great grandfather, who was one of the part of the members who started the site, started that town, coming from the South, moving westward toward New Mexico, where a lot of my family is based on my father's side. So that's the Boyer family, which is my surname. So you wrote a book, and well, let me say this too, because people, because you threw out some terms that people love to grab onto them, and they create YouTube videos of like who's in the rap Illuminati and all that. So he was giving historical context of the characters involved in the narrative. So just so that's cleared up and all that, as he's explaining the story and the what the term Afro Frontier came out of. So I appreciate that, and I know there's probably a lot more of this in the book that you've written recently that's coming out soon. Can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Well, okay, so the book will not include Illuminati. This is a textbook. This is a textbook that starts at the highest level of philosophy, history, borderland studies, African diaspora. So it gets into the stuff that most people fall asleep on.
Yeah.
But this book won't fall asleep on because I tie my time in Compton to the time of Ella Boyer in 100 years ago. And how I do that is I look at how black people built power, particularly in Blackdom. and it wasn't just Blackdom because it included Roswell, New Mexico. Again, these are very small places, especially coming from where you are right now. But these, Roswell, the aliens, right? That place, 20 miles south of that, is where the Boyer family was. So I didn't want to do the history unless I could find somebody in Compton, like in this story 100 years ago, and I did in Finding Mitty Moore. So she was on the other side of town, Madam Bootlegger, Gunslinger. Well, that's not going to fly with Frank Boyer, who's a minister, military man, and Freemason. So when you put the secular blackness on one side and then you put the religious Blackdom on one side, there's going to be a tension. And so that tension is what's in this book.
Sure.
It talks about how Black people struck oil 100 years ago, and they still on the land that they struck oil on. That right there in itself is a whole new concept for people to have to process, because a lot of people will dismiss it. Well, you can't dismiss it with a term like Afro-Frontier, because now you understand that they went there with that intention. The old narrative that I told you about before, the old Negro spiritual, again, I like Negro spirituals, but it doesn't allow Boyer to be the colonizer that he was. And I mean colonizer as a Black colonizer. It's a little bit different. Still a colonizer. It's indigenous space or whatnot. But this is a Black colonizer who has a different lens while colonizing. So anyway,
yeah,
that's the nutshell version of it, though.
Yeah. And that book is available, I believe you mentioned, at least for pre-sale or pre-save on Amazon currently. So for those who want to hear more about the history of Blackdom, the town in New Mexico, and all the layers that Dr. Timothy just mentioned, Amazon would be the place to go for that. And I'll say this, man, I think, so when we were sitting in the studio, myself and Petty B, and we were running through beats, listening to songs, and the point in time to where we said, hey, let's just get in the same room and try to write some music, was at a period, or a season, I should say, of our lives where we knew, we're in our late 40s, approaching the 50 mark, hip hop heads, rap nerds, all of that stuff. But then also knew that, man, there's still something inside of us that we want to go ahead and go after and move forward in, as if it's brand new going ahead, as if we've never done it before, like we didn't have solo careers previously. So it felt like there was, especially again, coming out of that pandemic time and the world changing and starting to get back to normal, there was like a new eyes that were on us, and like a sense of a refreshing of, man, there's more territory for us ahead that we can pursue, not only as artists, but as husbands, as fathers, as men who follow God. And we were like, man, what's stopping us from going after that, whatever that thing is? What's stopping us from, loading up the truck and then just drive out, figuratively speaking, with this music? And so when we started thinking through all that, it was like, man, yeah, there's new land to take. There's new frontier to go out and see and discover. So that's for us. That's like when we heard the term, and then we were thinking about what we wanted to do and what we accomplished, like just from us as men putting this together to go forward in life. It was like, man, this is a perfect fit. And for those who have heard the song, like there's really not there's really, in the descriptions of the song that you may see on Spotify or Apple Music, it doesn't really dig deep into it. It's kind of just an overview of, hey, this is the song. But the feedback that we've been getting from folks who've done a little bit of press on hearing the song, that song in particular, like they're able to extract, oh, this song is about empowerment, not just for Black people, but just, man, come out of the darkness and the stagnant state of life.
Let me
go ahead.
On that. Let me hit on that. That last part you said. Can you say that again? About Black, about the intercept, about what people are seeing at the end. Well, let me just put it like this: the Afro frontier, that new insight, is that Black is not a race; it's a consciousness. It's a condition. There is a thing called Black, right? I call myself Black, but it's more about the condition and the ideas that I appease and appeal to, and I try to project. In Blackdom, there weren't just African descendants. There were also Irish descendants. There were also Mexicanos. There were also indigenous peoples in Blackdom. So what Blackdom really was an intersectional Black space. So when I talk about Afro Frontier, we're talking about Afro-Mexicans, we're talking about Afro-Indigenous, and the migration and colonization that they did after slavery,
Yeah.
which wasn't just the Negro spiritual. It wasn't just Moses getting to the edge of the promised land. It was more like Joshua, the warrior who crossed the river Jordan into a promised land. But first he had to send, you know, his scouts out front. Well, when he sent his scouts out front, I'm preaching right now, he sent his scouts out first. They had to be saved by a harlot or a whore. Well, guess what? Afro-frontierism has a similar framework in that I go to Mitty Moore, who was a madam, a bootlegger, a gunslinger, because it shows a consistency across time, space, and yeah, and so yeah, I just wanted to add that part to Afro-frontier, that it's African descendants, but it's a lot more intricate. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, if I can dovetail on something you just said, because I feel like the essence of that is using that story of Joshua, right? They send spies into the land. Two of those spies come back like, man, there's giants. They're gonna crush us. But yet, not allowing that to stop them and staying on that other side of the bank. They were like, okay, yeah, we're going anyway because there's promise over on the other side.
There you go.
And so I'm glad you pulled that line out, because that's essentially what we have to come to, is we can't allow fear to immobilize us.
Yeah.
Especially when we know it's attached to a promise that God has for us.
Exactly.
Like, we're the only ones that's stopping ourselves at that point. But if we believe we've heard from God to go forward, then that's the motion that we want to move in. So thank you for adding that in.
Prepare, right? Like prepare, meaning you send some people over there so that they can kind of get an idea of what you're talking about. And that's literally what you just did with this song, Afro Frontier. Because I promise you did all of the heavy lifting for me. Like, I don't mean like me, I'm the center of it, but I mean, I write stuff that maybe 10, 15 people, 20 people read, because it's layered and philosophy and all of the things I got to do for a historical group. But what you did was just bridge the whole gap that I was trying to, like I said, the Illuminati, right? Like I wanted to bridge that gap, and you completely did. I heard your song one time and I was like, oh, wow. Like I have to do nothing but just keep playing this over and over in class, and I'm good. Because you hit all of the finer points, even in the lyrics, even in the hook, even in the energy. Like it was just, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, we appreciate that. And I know that's what myself and Petty want to be able to create, is theme music for people to live to. Because we all know that there's hip hop music out there, especially, that you can't live your life to. And we want to be able to serve that plate up for, like, man, take these principles. Because these songs for us come out of either burdens or experiences that we either feel from the time that we spend with the Lord, or just life lessons that, like, man, this is where we were, this is what we learned. Y'all can chew on this as well. So we hope that it's livable hip hop music for people to use as theme music. There's this movie, you probably remember this film, called "I'm Gonna Get You Sucker."
Oh,
and
man.
at the end of the movie, you hear this band playing, and then the guy stops and he's like, "Man, what is that?" He's like, "Oh, that's my theme music." And there's literally a whole
Every
band
superhero
following.
needs a theme music.
There you go. That's it.
What I thought about with you did, because for you to be both a Boyer, Christian rap, and it was like I created you for me. I was like, no. God created this system, and we just ended up on the same branch, the same tree, because we're both saying the same thing. It's just I have no lyrics. Although I do have a few poems in the writing.
Got bars though.
Yeah,
you got bars. Books.
Yeah, a little bit. I got a few. I was on the school ground in '91.
Hey.
Freestyling is what I call.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I want to make sure everybody on here knows where they can find you, where they can find the work that you do. I believe someone dropped the website in the chat, but if you can give us all the socials or wherever you want people to go to be able to find more about all your writings and the work you do. Okay.
Afrofrontier.com will get you the work, the articles and that kind of stuff that I do that's really heavy on the academic side. As far as social media, Facebook is where I have digitally recreated Blackdom. So that's where you end up with Blackdom Townsite Company. That's probably the best one, or Blackdom Townsite Co. And it'll be a yellow ball with a BTC. And then Facebook, Instagram, Mastodon, Twitter, Pinterest. Basically, if you want to find me, you can find me. TikTok.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I've been doing on TikTok. I've been trying to reach your level on TikTok, meaning I've been trying to explain all this stuff that I've been writing with the dissertation and everything and turning it into one-act plays or one-act plays on TikTok. And so also on our website, you'll see that we have a one-act play about Afro-frontierism and Blackdom coming up in June, right after Juneteenth. So yeah.
Amazing. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's Dr. Timothy E. Nelson, originally from Compton, Cali, sitting with us on this IG Live. He is the creator who coined the term Afro Frontier, which is the song, one of our songs, Village King's latest song and video releasing here this evening. So, Dr. Timothy, man, I know we said this already on the prior call, but we're gonna connect more so you can keep building out this family story for me and our offspring, so we know what it is.
Yes.
But we appreciate your time, man. Thank you for hopping on the live with us in the middle of the daytime, and man, we look forward to the book, obviously, and having more conversations with you as we go, man. So, thank you everybody also for jumping in, and you can rewatch this live. Hopefully, if I end this correctly, it'll be saved in the feed for y'all to reference later. So. Appreciate y'all. Bless you. Village King out.
Out.